listening to Tea with Tolkien, a podcast for the Hobbit at heart. Pull up a cozy chair and join us as we chat about the works and faith of J.R.R. Tolkien and strive to carry a little piece of Middle-earth into our own daily lives. We are on week 15 of our Silmarillion read-along, and this week we will be covering yet another depressing chapter, chapter 22 of The Ruin of Doriath. As this chapter opens, Morwen, the mother of Turin and wife of Húrin, is wandering alone and distraught in the wild. Now, after 28 years, Morgoth has decided to release Húrin back into the world, so he pretended to pity him and was like, yes, I feel bad for you now, so I'll let you go. So Húrin is released. He wandered for a time unwelcome with his own kin, and he passed into Dimbar, and he tried to go to Gondolin, because if you'll remember, he had been to Gondolin before, so he thought this would be a good option. However, he didn't realize that the servants of Morgoth were watching him. And so as he's kind of like in the region of Gondolin, he is looking for it, but he's not really able to get in, obviously. And Thorondor, the eagle, saw Húrin and brought word to Turgon, but Turgon would not allow him into Gondolin. And after a while, he changed his mind and decided to let him in, but at this point it was too late. Húrin called towards Gondolin in desperation, and the servants of Morgoth heard him. And so even though he wasn't able to make it into Gondolin, he ultimately succeeded in completely giving them away, and this is really what Turgon was afraid of happening, so not good. Tolkien writes, this was the first evil that the freedom of Húrin achieved. So overall, this is working out great for Morgoth so far. After that, Húrin decided to go search for his wife Morwen, and he found her at the tomb of Turin and Nienor, and shortly after he found her, she died, and then he buried her. After that, Húrin went to Nargothrond, where he killed Mime, the dwarf, and took the Nauglamir, which is that necklace of the dwarves. Húrin went to Doriath and gave the Nauglamir to Thingol. At first, he was wrathful, and he felt like his family had been wronged by Thingol, but Melian spoke to him, and the lies of Morgoth were understood after that. Tolkien writes, Morgoth hath bewitched thee, for he that seeth through Morgoth's eyes, willing or unwilling, seeth all things crooked. Long was Turin thy son fostered in the halls of Menegroth, and shown love and honor as the son of the king. And it was not by the king's will, nor by mine, that he came never back to Doriath. And afterwards thy wife and thy daughter were harboured here with honor and goodwill, and we sought by all means that we might dissuade Morwen from the road to Nargothrond. With the voice of Morgoth thou dost now upbraid thy friends. So that's Melian, and she kind of explains to Húrin that what he saw while he was in the captivity of Morgoth wasn't fully the truth. After that, Húrin cast himself into the Western Sea. After this, Thingol had the idea to have the Nauglamir remade to hold the Silmaril that he had from Beren and Luthien. And after the dwarves completed this task, they refused to give it back to Thingol, and Thingol was pretty angry, and he lashed out against the dwarves, and they ended up killing him. So there goes Thingol. Tolkien writes, and so died in the deep places of Menegroth Elwë Singollo, king of Doriath, who alone of all the children of Ilúvatar was joined with one of the Ainur, and he who alone of the forsaken elves had seen the light of the trees of Valinor, with his last sight gazed upon the Silmaril. So then these dwarves who killed Thingol are then pursued, and the Nauglamir is taken and brought back to Melian. The dwarves of Nogrod sought vengeance against Doriath because they didn't totally get the full truth of the story. And after this, Melian's power was diminished, and Doriath lay open to its enemies, and Melian knew that the doom of Doriath was coming near. So at this point, Melian just up and disappears and returns to Lorien. The dwarves who came were able to pass into Menegroth very quickly, and they met the elves in battle, but the dwarves were victorious, and they reclaimed the Nauglamir. So over in Tol Galen, Dior, who was the son of Beren and Luthien, was wed to Nimloth, and I know what you're thinking because there is also a tree named Nimloth. However, totally different, just happened to be two characters with the same name. And they had 3 children, Elured, Elurin, and Elwing, who was the daughter. There came a time of battle when Beren came up against these dwarves, and Beren killed Nogrod, and he gave the Nauglamir to Luthien. And after this, Dior, who was Thingol's heir, brought his family to live in Doriath. At last, Beren and Luthien died, and the Nauglamir was brought to Dior in Doriath. Tolkien writes, "Then Dior arose, and about his neck he clasped the Nauglamir, and now he appeared as the fairest of all children in the world, of threefold race, of the Edain, and of the Eldar, and of the Maiar of the Blessed Realm." Dior refused to give the Silmaril to the sons of Feanor, which reawakened their oath, and Celegorm came and assaulted Doriath. Tolkien writes, "There fell Celegorm by Dior's hand, and there fell Cúdafin and dark Caranthir. But Dior was slain also, and Nimloth his wife. And the cruel servants of Celegorm seized his young sons and left them to starve in the forest." So at this point, Doriath has been basically destroyed. However, they were not successful because they did not receive the Silmaril. However, the sons of Feanor were not successful because they did not retrieve the Silmaril, because Elwing, the daughter of Beren and Luthien, has escaped to the mouths of the river Sirion with it. So at this point, she has lost her entire family and is incredibly sad. So this chapter also ends on a sad note, but there is a lot of hope that comes with this because Elwing has escaped and the Silmaril is with her. So we will see what happens next week in chapter 23. This was a pretty short chapter, but very intense nonetheless. And I do appreciate that it ended with a little bit of hope because the end of the story has been quite depressing. So I hope you enjoyed this quick summary. If you have any thoughts, I would love to hear about them. You can send me a note on Twitter at TeaWithTolkien, or you can join our Discord by going to teawithtolkien.com/Discord. And with that, I will see you all next week.